I mean, personally, like with this new music, like I'm trying to like push all of our like boundaries as far as like our actual physical limits and abilities. And you're gonna hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Sweet.
Which is a good thing. I mean, it makes us better.
yeah,
It's just,
like I just want to keep like showcasing that we can keep growing and keep doing more and
Mhm.
I
keep
love that.
getting better. And like this song is kind of like, hey, anybody that's doubted us, like check this out. Like
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with the simple man.
Your boy, Modd.
What's up, buddy?
What's good, Jay? I'm happy to be here,
Good.
man.
I'm happy you're here. I'm happy that you're happy, too. So.
Yeah, it's rare.
Yeah. Well, today we have some returning guests whose music has left a huge impression on us.
Yes.
I know we absolutely love what you guys do. You guys create some incredible tunes. You know, your talent and dedication to your craft between the production that you guys do, the riffing, great singing, songwriting, monster bass lines, and, man, got a shout out to Mike, his drumming on especially The Wither. So badass, dude. So these guys are here to give us a special peek into a new song, and we're going to catch up where we left off. So Michael and Tyler Stellema from Vestigial, welcome back to the show.
Howdy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, man.
Yes.
Thanks for
Off
making
clap.
the trip.
We'll get the clap track on the actual.
Yeah.
So, thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. I know the last time you guys were on the show, we went over the basics, kind of how you got into music, what started the band. We talked you talked about your love for Silosis and In Flames, I remember.
Yep.
We talked some music production, and I'd like to dive into that a little more today and kind of explore some of that world. Got some questions for you, too, as far as guitar playing goes. And, I mean, we'll listen to the new song, so we'll talk a lot about that. And then the last time you were on, we listened to the Worlds Away single that came out for the Wither LP that has since dropped since you guys been on the show. So you guys want to talk a little bit about that, the Wither LP, and I think there was 2 or maybe 3 singles out the last time you guys were on.
Yeah, the Worlds Away was the 3rd single of 4 total singles that we did for Wither.
And it's an 8-song total.
Yep.
34 sweet minutes.
Yep. Short and sweet.
Yeah, and that was released just in July here in 2024. So I'll give you my feedback on it, but you got any reflections on it or anything you want to say about the Wither LP? Or
I mean, as far as like the album itself, I think reflecting back on it, it's the longest we've ever taken to write an album. I think that shows in positive and negative ways. I feel like the album, it has a lot of like our strongest songs of our career, I feel like, on it, but also parts of it feel disjointed in a sense where you can tell the direction we're going, but you can also get a sense of the direction that we were prior. So it's like kind of like a mix, which I mean falls in line with like a bit of our discography where like it kind of like enters different realms, different genres. But I feel like this new record really just kind of like was in a few different baskets, particularly, which isn't necessarily negative, but I do think that it gives more of a taste of like the direction the band is going. We made a lot of like branding changes, thematic changes, and all that like with this album. So it feels more like a stepping stone record than like the like magnum opus, so to speak. But I do like the album. It's still like my favorite album that we've put out so far. But I think there's a lot more to come from like the next record, and there's like a sense of like preparing that Wither gives towards future music.
Okay. Say the Wither, you saying it being like a stepping stone definitely spawned a lot of demos after that already.
Nice. What are the songs off of Wither that you feel like lean more toward the direction you're going currently?
Hive Breath is a not only is it a reference to the theme of the next album,
Okay.
but it's also like Wither or Hive Breath is pretty much like the stepping stone song of like we're setting you up for this new world that we're creating, a new theme.
Okay.
It's the sound. It's very diving back into like the heavy orchestra driven stuff like we had on the Painted World. Bringing back a lot of death metal influence like we had on Crown of Serpents. So it's going to be a very dark album, and so, like the darker songs on this record are the ones that I would say drive the sound that we're going for now. Like
We'll insert that clap thing right here too.
yeah, like Hive Breath is probably like a big one, and then stuff like Resurrection Magic, a lot more thrash, like writing a lot of fast shit on this new album.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Sweet.
So, a few of these songs were singles, and I listened to them before, and then I've kind of been I actually listened to it today, but I've listened to this album a few times since you guys had some new stuff for me to check out. Really, it was kind of new to me. I know it came out in July, but with us, as much stuff as we listened to, I thought it was awesome that you guys were coming back on the show. Then it gives me a reason to kind of dive back in, but I thought the album itself flowed really well. Even though you had those singles that came out beforehand, it did seem like it was a cohesive sound all the way through, right? The riffs were very thoughtful. And when I say thoughtful, sometimes I'll get in these patterns myself of writing riffs, and they may be a little complex to some people, but they're a little more on the simple side. You guys kind of... Well, where I say thoughtful, there's this finesse in you guys' riffs where you might play like some chuggy kind of weird palm muted thing, and then you'll hit the top higher strings and almost a chord sound, and then you might do some little pull off, and when that repeat, it's like complex one in itself, but it's a simple structure, if that makes sense, So that's why I say they're thoughtful, because there is a complexity to them that is like, if you're really listening to know the technique that it takes with the right hand and the left hand to pull off some of the stuff that you guys are playing, I'm like, holy shit, this is badass. Like, instantly, when I listen to something and I'm inspired, I know that there's something fucking high quality. And I know we've bragged you guys up on the show, but just cranking through this album, I was like, man, these guys are so fucking good, and I hope they know that. So that's why I say thoughtful, because it's not just technical to be technical or crazy to be crazy. You guys pick and choose your spots, just like you pick and choose your spots when you add the grind in. That's very impactful when Mike decides to do that, or you guys decide to do that, and he comes in. The blast, because there's some blasts throughout this. There is some really heavy riffs, some trem picking. Worlds Away, I mean, the chorus in that is so strong and catchy, and I just, when that song comes on and you kind of go into that, like the Hive will, consume you or whatever, like it's just so catchy and strong. I'm just like, fucking good job on that. And then the Resurrection Magic, that's probably my favorite song off there. And then I'm assuming you're doing that like sweep arp thing in there.
I was pretty
fucking
proud of
so
that one.
badass, dude. It's so clean too. I'm
Thank
like,
you.
dude, that is fucking sweet. So I mean, dude, I loved it. Like especially like Bloom at the end.
Oh yeah.
There's like this bass solo kind of riff thing in the beginning, and then at the end it goes into bass and drums. And I loved how that was another way you guys displayed, and what Nick talks about all the time is being able to break up all that monotony of the heavy and the thrash. Stuff like that really stands out to me, and it's really good, and it still has a heavy and drive to it, a little bit of keyboard stuff going on in the background, and it keeps a mood, but it still has an angst to it, but at the same time it's a break from the screaming or the sweeping or the whatever other elements. But man, and just Mike's playing on it, or just the drums on it, are so fucking good, dude. Just tight. Everything's good, man. So that was my takeaway from it. I thought you guys did a great job, and it's a great record, man.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows really well. I was trying to decide, did Tyler write this one, or did Michael write this one? So those are the games I play when I'm listening to it. I like the different choices of fills, where either it might be a guitar sweep or some technical thing, or just something Gojira-esque where it was really noisy. I'm like, what are they doing? It's almost, maybe it's a pick slide, but maybe it's just rubbing a bare hand across. Like, what is that very muted kind of sound? I don't know which track it was. It was maybe Tribalism or Psalms this morning I was listening to on the way up here. But
there's a couple of them. You guys kind of got them harmonics and them like pick scrapes and shit in there.
Yeah,
that, like
so
them kind of noisy into heavy.
I can tell you how I do that. It's actually pretty easy.
Let the players know.
Yeah.
So Gojira does the thing where like they like run their finger up like a harmonic.
Yep.
Okay.
I said fuck that, and I you know how like when you do a pinch harmonic, you kind of like use your thumb to like
Yeah.
hit the harmonic. So
Sure.
I'm taking my thumb and I'm picking the strings up with the
Okay.
pick at an angle, like straight onto the strings rather than
Okay.
like picking it. So I rub the edge of the pick along the strings, and then I'm using my thumb as it goes up the strings to hit harmonics while it's scraping. So it's like doo 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 all the way up the guitar.
Nice.
So it's just like that, and I can do it as like fast or slow as I want. So I can go like doo 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 or and
Nice.
so I use that quite a bit in our songs actually.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Is that how you do it too then?
Yeah,
Same way?
yeah. To be honest, I struggle with it a little bit more.
Right, yeah.
It's really weird to do, but
It sounds like a homemade technique. You're like something you just discovered one day, and you're like, I'm doing
Yeah,
it.
I was trying to do the Gojira thing, and I did that, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so,
Right on,
and
right
what
on.
I really like to do with it, I do it in Psalms actually is
Okay.
I run that down and then come in with my left hand on the Floyd Rose, so it's like blue whip
Oh,
like
okay.
that,
Okay.
and
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
fun.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I really like Psalms, especially when it gets to that really super angry guest vocal toward the end of the song.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god,
The alligator man.
Yeah.
The jaw just comes unhinged, and I'm like, oh my god.
There's like that weird sound where it's like.
Yeah, I don't know how the fuck he does
Yeah.
that.
I didn't,
That
it
too.
sounded like Popeye eating some spinach or something. I didn't know what the fuck.
I tell you, every time I hear it, it scares me. I'm like,
Dude, for real.
It does sound like some monster about to jump out and eat your ass from under the bed or something.
yeah, the album's got a lot going on in terms of like variety too, as Jay was saying. It's not, and I always go back to what Michael said the first time you're on. Like, if you're always heavy, you're never heavy. I mean, that list, like, that rung my bell. I was like, that's the expression I'm looking for, because if you're constantly just blasting and grinding, I'm snoozing.
Yeah.
I can really put on something that does that for 60 minutes. I'm like, after 2 or 3 songs, I can't take it. So the fact that you guys just know when to pick and choose your crazy beats, your blasts, and your grinds, and your thrash versus just letting everything breathe, I mean, it makes it for a very enjoyable 34 minutes or 38, 34. I love it. I love the variation in the riffing and all the styles that go into it.
Well,
Yeah.
the last time you were on, we talked a little bit about your writing process, how you're kind of writing into the recording. Is that been the same throughout this process on Wither, pretty much? Because I'm interested to know, because a lot of times there will be parts in the song where it just kind of breaks down into this almost drum beat that's got a bunch of reverb, and it's very open and breaks the song up, and I love that. I mean, that is excellent. Is that how you approach that? Are you hearing that in your head? Or are you coming up with some riffs and then just saying it'd be cool if it dropped in this part? Or is it just all experimentation? What does that look like for you?
It's different for every song, really. I'd say like the biggest approach is I sit and I write a bunch of riffs that like fit the same vibe, and then I rearrange them. Like, I call them like Lego pieces, or like I'm taking the different pieces and I'm like clicking them together in the DAW to like find like a good structure, and then I run drums through the whole way, and then everything else just kind of falls after that. Other times I'll have like lyrical ideas or themes in my head. A lot of the time I start with a song name, where like I come up with a name of a song and I'm like, how does that make me feel? What am I thinking about? And then like the music kind of comes from that. That's happened a lot of times where like I'll think of like a song name that just kind of makes me like go, that's evil, and then like a bunch of riffs just kind of fill that void, I guess. But like I approach all of our songwriting with, especially now, with like the intention of serving the song in a way that you want to re-listen to the song rather than blowing the load on the first listen, So it's like all the songs I feel like are ones that you want to revisit, to like re-experience. You want to like pick out the different things, find the different little bits of ear candy. It's like, it's like a video game you're trying to get like all the achievements for. You just kind of like want to listen through it until you like figure out all the like nuance of it. So I try to make all the songs like nuanced in that way where all the songs have like a bundle to offer, rather than like this song is just this kind of way, or this song is this kind of way, and then like the album giving you a collection of things. it's like each song in itself is like an album's expression, I guess.
I mean, that's a great way to put it. I would see that way. Like I said, it flows really well, but each song does have its own personality and its own kind of vibe, you know.
Not only that, but within each song, I recognize some callbacks. Like you'll do the choruses and what have you, but then I'll notice not every riff's coming back a second time around.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think that's a unique approach to songwriting because we kind of preach like the old school verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, outro. Like that can get boring at the end of the day. So I got to respect when you decide like, yeah, we're going to do this sick riff only once, cry your tears now, come back and listen to the song later if you didn't get it enough of it. You know what I mean? So I feel like that built into those songs is pretty cool too. Sometimes I did hear one, I feel like, are they bringing that back or not? Because that was fucking sick. But if not, I'll just listen to it again because they're short enough. Like,
Right.
they're all coming in under 5 minutes, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I appreciate that. You do have the little gems in there where you might only do a riff one time, and it's, that's fine. Like you said, if it serves the song, and it gives it replayability. So
as you're putting these little Lego blocks together, as you're calling it, and that's a way. So I make beats in FL Studio, and that's the same way I approach it. I'll make just a loop, right? And then I'll break it all down to each individual instrument, and then I'll just start piecing it all together how I feel like it needs to go. So with that being said, when you're doing that with the guitar riffs, are you thinking about the keyboard parts right then, or do you complete the song and then add that after? I mean, are you playing with the MIDI as you're playing the riff, or?
Most of the time I try to feel like I'm like a band first kind of like mindset where it's like I want the band to be able to craft the experience, and then everything else kind of fills the gaps.
Okay.
So sometimes I'll write a riff with the intention of like, okay, this is going to be like orchestra driven, or like something else is going to be really like driving the area, but most of the time I'm like trying to make the band like the stick out point, because like at the end of the day, like you go to see a band live, you want to make sure you're watching them play.
Yeah.
And like if I feel like if I write too many sections that are like driven by the backtracks, it takes away from the experience of it being a metal band.
Okay. And that makes sense, and that's what you just said was going through my head the whole time as I was listening to the album, just like obviously thinking about the live situation too, because there are parts where you're singing and there's like a drum beat going on, or just like kind of a backing track, with an effect on it, and nobody else is kind of doing anything. So I'm in my head, I'm like, how does that translate live? What does that sound like? Just with the mix and everything.
Two guys tuning, one guy
right?
singing.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean that makes total sense as far as just putting the pieces in there as an afterthought, because we always kind of go back to the thing too, like you guys should be able to jam it in the room without the backing track for the most part, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
whether you approach it like that or not, I mean, if you rely on the backing track too much, it does take the little pizzazz out of being in a band and just being able to power through the song. I know that's not how you approach the music, and you guys' music is served by these additional elements, right? But at the same time, you do gotta, at the end of the day, like just pick up the guitar and fucking jam, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So when you were on last, you were saying like all those backing tracks, all of your guys' tones, everything was like contained in this box, as you refer to it as. Have you had any trouble with that? Like, you guys don't book out a lot, but has there been any bumps in the road when you're like, oh, we're having a hard time getting the box to work with the sound guy? Has that been an issue for you guys at all?
Honestly, the biggest issue is the weight.
He's moving
Yeah,
it.
It's huge.
Yeah, but like realistically, it's so self-contained, and there's so few variables that it's plug
Even
and
worse.
play.
Yeah, it's
And
just-
like at the end of the day, like it's working for us at
Right.
least. So
Yeah.
like as we're at least be able to hear ourselves and like play what we need to play.
you're right.
If the sound system at the venue fucks up, I mean that's on them.
Yeah.
But like
Right.
no errors, no external issues are going to affect what we have as far as like what we're hearing and like what we're
Right.
playing. Obviously if like, something like dies, like a Kemper just breaks or something.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
the way everything's hooked up and everything, like there's no variables. It's the same. It's the same thing that we do at practice. It's the same thing we do on stage.
Okay.
So like
It's all or none,
yeah,
basically.
it's
Yeah.
no different.
This is
I know
us.
that.
This is what's going on.
I saw Stabbing Westward at Upheaval, and the first song they came out was one of their better songs. It was a banger, and you couldn't hear anything.
Oh.
Maybe the guy's vocals, but I liken it to like your guys' situation where I think they just have everything for themselves on the stage, and they're strumming and they're playing, and they think they're rocking out, and then everybody in the crowd, we just look over at the sound guy and we're like, dude, fix the shit. Like, let's go. We want to hear the song. I think they were about halfway into song 2 before you could hear anything. I was just like,
Yeah, it's
God
totally
damn it.
unfair to the band too.
Yeah, and you'd wish somebody would just like say like, hey,
Right.
wait a minute, like stop.
Yeah.
I know you guys are on a timeline, but we're gonna have to take 30 seconds to figure it out here.
Right.
But happy to hear that you guys haven't had any struggles like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like that kind of thing does happen, unfortunately. But like, most of the time, if it's like a competent venue or like event that's being set up, like
right,
they have the staff and technology required to like
sure,
handle things. Which is unfortunately like why we don't play as many shows, because like we're not like going out over to like, you know, bar shows like Mulligan's and stuff like that
Yeah.
much anymore, because we don't have the cabs. We don't have like, if we're going to rely on like sound systems and stuff, we need to like set our sights on places that have
Yeah.
like the ability to like really represent how we sound.
yeah. And you won't say it, so I'll say it for you. You guys are above that shit.
Yeah,
you guys.
I mean-
you guys need to be in good venues. Period.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a perfect example because Heartsick, they use almost kind of the same setup you
Mhm.
guys use. They have these 2 big ass things, 2 dual Kempers in there. Everything's ran out of there through a click track. The drummer's got the clicks in and everything. And we played with them at Mulligan's, and it doesn't translate if
No.
the system doesn't hold up, because
Right.
that guy's guitar tone is completely reliant on whatever's coming out of the PA. And if the PA can barely handle a kick drum,
Right.
you know, you're in
Yeah,
for a
no
world of
shit.
shit, you
Yeah.
know, and then it doesn't represent your band in a way that needs to be represented. I mean, Heartsick pulled it off because they're professionals, and, you know, they still sounded good because they can sound good with or without. But at the same time, I don't think it did it justice just because the PA sucks so bad there.
Right.
And,
Right.
You know, I'm not talking shit about Mulligan's. It's a cool place to play or whatever, but like,
Right.
like literally, you don't even know half the time when you show up there's going to be a monitor or what. Like, you really don't even know like what you're walking into.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I know,
and there's plenty of venues around that are of the same caliber, because
Yeah.
you know, it's just, there's a difference between like bars and DIY versus like people that like are pulling in the big acts and like
Yeah.
doing this for a living.
Yeah.
And like,
Clubs and venues.
Yeah.
You know,
Like-
so you got your pyramid scheme and your intersection. They're
Mhm.
more. They're not a bar. All right.
No.
Nobody goes there to drink.
No, exactly.
I mean, not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, I never roll up to the intersection thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to knock back a few."
Yeah.
You know, like,
I'll get my
few
ass out of
cocktails
here.
at the intersection for $9 a piece.
yeah, $20 to get in. It's 20 to get in.
Yeah.
That's like 3 drinks, man. 2.
Too, yeah.
So, I don't know if you've got this coming up, but I figured since we're talking about live, did we want to jump into the most recent?
Yeah, go ahead,
performance?
buddy. Yeah.
So, how was that for you? The most recent.
So you
Was
guys
it
played
open
with Vitriol,
for Go
Go
Horror?
Horror, and I apologize. I wanted to be at that show, but Larry decided to get married the same day you guys had that show. So 2 disappointing shows in Grand Rapids I missed because I didn't get to go to Dark Funeral show because I had tickets
Oh.
to Tom Segura, so I didn't get to go to
Right.
Dark Funeral. And I was like, when you guys' show came up, I was telling the wife, I'm like, I'm getting tickets from this. I'm gonna get a hold of Michael, and she's like, no, you're not. I'm like, what do you mean? No, I'm not. She's like, that's the day Larry's getting married. I'm like,
Yeah,
Oh,
I
fuck.
could. I also could not make it, and I'm like, I promise I want to go. I really do want to go. It was a couple of things. One, my wife was working. 2, that day was our
I was gonna
anniversary.
say.
So if I was doing anything,
That's fair.
it was like her first, and
Mhm.
she had to work it. So we just hung out in the afternoon. She worked that night, and then we celebrated the next day. But that's us. You tell us about that day. How was it for
I'll
you?
let Tyler talk about it.
I thought the show was awesome. It
Okay.
was cool finally seeing some of the bands too. I mean, because
Yeah.
we had missed Vitriol a couple times that they were in here, so being able to actually see them and know that we were on the same stage as, that guy absolutely destroying his guitar.
Kyle?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
he's a monster.
They went on as a 2-piece that night, correct?
Yeah, it was nuts,
Okay.
and they still
Yeah.
sounded perfect.
Yeah.
But I thought we played great. We had actually really good feedback and reaction for playing in front of a heavier crowd
Yeah.
than what we're used to.
Yeah, I was wondering how you guys felt about
know,
that because that's a really
We're
heavy
pretty
lineup.
mostly death metal. One guy even told Michael, he's like, "Hell, I think you made me like metalcore now."
Yeah.
oh, jeez.
Yeah, we had some really good feedback, thankfully, and it was a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah, I mean, so for me in my world, you guys are fucking heavy. Like, yeah, I was listening again this morning. I'm like, man, shades of the Faceless, right? Especially if you like Autotheism 3
Oh,
or Autotheism.
yes,
Where
yes.
like, and I say that because Michael does the clean vocals on
Yup.
that album, especially,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still a great album in my opinion. And I'm like listening to it, I'm like, yeah, it definitely reminds me of like the riffage that the Faceless might do. And I know your guys' taste, like the Silosis and In Flames, and I try to pick out some of that, but I also I think that jumps out at me, and I'm like, I feel like it would go over with a lot of people, but yeah, certain metal crowds were like, as soon as you come in with the clean vocals,
I know.
they tune out.
know,
They're
it's
like, I
crazy.
can't hear singing. Like they fucking hate it, and I'm like, why
It
not?
can still work good in death metal too. It's just just done differently.
Yeah. So I love what you guys are doing. I was wondering if you felt like, oh, like maybe there's some pushback there because of, your style. But I'm like, I feel like it's heavy metal.
Yeah,
Like,
and we actually got like good feedback from Kyle of Vitriol. Like he
Nice.
actually like talked to me after our set and was like,
Sweet.
that was very
Yeah.
like diverse and actually interesting. So
yeah,
that was a cool compliment to get.
Yeah. Yeah, especially coming from him. I mean, he knows diversity. That guy, well, he knows crazy.
Yeah, I had just seen them. I don't know, in the summer. In May. I seen
Chaos
them.
and Carnage, right?
Yeah, there.
Oh yeah.
And they were 3-piece then,
Yep.
and then all that stuff went down, and they continued to tour with a 2-piece. But they were pretty badass when I seen them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot to take in. I mean, it's like a lot. It's like a wash of sound over
Kind of
you,
just
but you
having
can
to
tell it's
focus on his
complex,
guitar.
technical. It kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of the Hate Eternal kind of ilk. A little maybe a little more chaotic, but
Yeah, I
dude,
think so.
dude does shred, man. I mean, and I've always liked goat horror. Like with a name like that, I would never listen to them. Like, oh, let me check the G's. What's this? Goat horror? Shit slams. You know what I mean?
Told all my coworkers about the band we were playing with, and they just every person I told, they just laughed their ass off. Like, what did you just say? Go horror? I'm like, you heard it right.
They're actually incredibly nice people too.
Yeah.
Like
I believe
very
it.
nice.
Yeah, dude. When I seen them live like 3 or 4 different times, I never sought out to see them. But when I seen them, I was like, these guys fucking rip, man. Like they're very
Nice.
talented, tight, super
Yeah.
heavy. I know that I can't remember his name. Thought his name was like Sonny or Sammy or something like that. But I know he uses like Marshall's JM. Can't remember which
800
ones.
probably?
Yeah, probably the 800. But yeah, I heard him talking on a podcast about his guitar tone. But he just like, that's what I like, that's what I use, and that's what he uses. So
Yeah, those dudes are like straight old school, fucking straight to the point metal kind of
Yeah.
folk, and like just the nicest dudes. Like just a really good group of people.
Yeah,
they have the
sweet.
bullet stuff on, like the bullet
Yeah.
Yeah.
leather and all
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah, hell yeah. It was
Yeah.
It was just super classic. Like it was just
Yeah.
like these dudes grew up in it. Like that was exactly like their life, and like they still do it. And
Yeah.
they're-
So how was Chain Ripper? Is that first time playing with those guys?
First time playing with them. Yes, I've seen them before. They're always awesome. Like
yeah,
it's just
they're really
like
good.
it's just cool to see like a younger crowd like doing like very old school kind of shit. Like
It's very
super
Slayer-esque.
thrashy. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like they're just all really good at their instruments. Like it was cool to watch them up there. So,
Yeah, very tight guitar players, man. We played with them before too, and super good band.
Yeah, Necrofire too. Unfortunately, they had they weren't able to play that show.
Really?
Yeah, they had food poisoning.
Ugh,
I know it.
brutal.
Yeah, so that kind of sucked. We didn't get a chance to see them, but
Yeah, not really familiar with them.
they're a little more black metal.
So that was a show, though. You sold tickets for the show.
Yep.
Yep.
So how did you seek out that show? How did you get on this bill?
I don't remember, to be honest.
I
I think usually we get in contact with
yeah, pretty
the
much
promoter
most
guy.
of the pyramid scheme shows that we get, it's a package is coming through, and they just hit us up because we always sell. Like,
Okay.
Nice.
we just have such a good like rapport with them that like it's kind of like we're like top of the list of like, oh, metal acts coming through the pyramid scheme. Let's see if they're down to play, because
Oh yeah.
we get a few offers, I would say, every year for the pyramid scheme, and they're the promoting agency that we usually work with. Nate Duro is his name. He's been with a few different promoting agencies, but he's recently like taken a job at the pyramid scheme as well. So like that relationship just continues, and like
Nice.
yeah, he's just
That's
awesome
awesome.
dude to work with. He's always like he's the one that's put on all of our headlining shows.
Okay.
He just a great guy to work with. He does what he says he's gonna do, and he does a really good job at it.
Hell
So,
yeah, gotta appreciate it and like that for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else you want to talk about that show? I mean,
I think it's been a while since we had played, before that, and it helped like reawaken like the love of playing,
being on
like,
stage,
and because like
performing.
when you don't do it for a while, you kind of like forget, and like playing, being done with like leading up to the show, I was kind of like nervous. I usually don't get like nervous for shows, but like it'd been so long that I was just kind of like, this is kind of different.
yeah,
And like just so much is like happened like in my life and all that, like just between like previous shows and like this one, and it was just a new experience, I guess. And just getting up there though, and like as soon as we started, it was just like second nature. And like I was like super worried about like if I was gonna sing on key and everything, and
Yeah.
like I apparently I nailed it. So it was cool to like just like kind of immediately have that muscle memory of like we're back at it, we're doing it. And like definitely want to play more shows. Like it's got me excited to like book more stuff. And there's more to come, but just kind of trying to work out details on stuff like that, but nothing booked at the moment.
Oh, so what was preparation like that then?
I was just going to ask, did you guys ramp up
Yeah. 'Cause-
extra practice sessions?
yeah. Usually in between shows, it's like maybe we're doing some recording or not, but then practice once a week, and then as it gets closer, and then we start doing twice a week maybe. Start practicing on our own time.
Yeah.
I'm doing vocals in the car every day, trying to get my chops back up because I don't know.
Are you driving while doing this?
Yeah.
Watch out for this man. It's dangerous on the road.
Eyes are open.
Just don't pass out from them low gutturals.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't usually go full throttle while I'm
there
doing
you
it.
go.
Okay.
Just like,
So you're just trying to memorize lyrics,
yeah,
maybe?
and
Just
mostly
like
just kind of like throat warm ups, and then if I get home and we do like maybe some demo recording, then that helps with practice too. But
yeah.
or maybe the car's parked. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, just look it out.
He's texting while driving, just
Yeah.
screaming. Like,
Yeah, reading his lyrics too.
He's screaming his text.
Reading his lyrics,
Yeah.
trying to remember him, driving.
It's not a Tesla.
God damn,
Not there yet.
that's a good idea though.
No, I do know that feeling. If you haven't played on stage in a while, there's a little bit more nervousness. There's a little bit more angst. There's a little bit more. Oh, and then when you get up there, you seem to be a little bit more nervous just because you want to hold yourself to a high degree,
Yeah.
and you know what you can accomplish and have before, so you want to make sure it's still there. So that's why I asked, because I know for me, I found out, and I said this last time, I don't want to reiterate something, but I used to drink, so it made me feel a little more comfortable. But now that I don't drink or anything at all, you're just going up there straight up stone cold sober, basically. And, I feel like at that time is not only leading up to that show, you need to be practiced and know your shit by the back of your hand, but also when you get there, make sure you're warming up really well.
Yeah.
Because that alcohol used to do the warm up for me. So I just hit the shot and like, oh, I'm cool. You know what I mean? Like, and I played some good shows drinking. At least I thought. But
Yeah,
you were never like in the
oh
bottle,
no, I've
though.
never been like that anyway. For the most
no,
part, here
no.
and there, But in the
But still, you can having one drink before a show is one thing, but having three and then that third one, it might not hit you until the
Yeah.
lights
Yeah.
hit you, and you're like, "Shit, I'm fucked."
Yeah.
Like that. Stall. I need water. Stat. Like, I don't know if that's been a problem for anybody else, but I definitely have run into that, especially if you're ever in a bar band.
Oh, yeah.
If you're in a
4
you're in a-
hours.
You're in a cover
Yeah.
band, and then people just bring you shots.
I always hated that about like when they'd give you like drink tickets, because I've never been a drinker at all. So like
Right.
I'd get these drink tickets, and like the rest of the guys would be like fighting over them for me. And I'm like, I don't get anything out of this show, man. I don't even get to be drunk or anything. I'm just like sitting here at this fucking bar
Yep.
playing a show, and then like everybody else is like
At least
drinking,
Yeah.
having a good time, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, yep.
Yeah,
Just
that's
chilling.
usually what happens. If I get some, I just give them to the wife. I'm like, just tell them I sent them up there for me, and then it's like, she'll just grab some White Claws or something, whatever.
So, practice once a week, no matter what, show or no
Most
show.
of the time.
Yeah, we
like around
we
the
try
holidays.
to.
Like right now, it gets a little iffy.
Yeah.
'Cause, like
Yeah.
Joey's in school, and like everybody's got like holiday plans on like
Yep.
typically, and so
Yeah.
we are practicing next week, but it's been a couple weeks since we've gotten in there. So
Sure.
I do want to say, sorry, Mod, I didn't mean to cut
Nope.
you off, but I do want to say congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah, on your
Yes.
marriage. right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I know
Yep.
Joey got married as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, we got married the same week.
Yeah, so I thought
Okay.
that I seen that. I knew you were getting married because I kind of seen it, on Facebook or whatever. Then all of a sudden, I seen pictures of him getting married too. I was like, oh, okay, they do this as a band too. They're like, round them up, let's just line them up. No, but congratulations,
Thank you.
man. That's
Yeah.
super cool. I'm very happy for you, and I know
Yeah.
when you're kind of talking about how your life has changed, I know that was part of it. So,
Mm-hmm.
So I know you said, as far as playing next, since we're talking about shows, you just don't have anything lined up, but the goal is to get out there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I have plans for a show.
Okay.
Like a headlining show.
Lollapalooza.
Just kind of like was trying to lock in like a bigger band.
Okay.
It's in the works. There's nothing confirmed, but yeah, I'm just trying to like make it like a really special event with like
Gotcha.
that's gonna draw a lot of people, and so that's kind of the hold up on it.
Okay.
So obviously you can't name this band.
Right.
I respect that. It's fair. That's business as usual. But so you're talking like a national act that would be kind of coming through on their own tour or something?
It'd be
Is-
more like a regional band that
Okay.
we're paying to come co-headline with us.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Hell
Love
yeah.
it. Love it.
So, I know you had talked a little bit last time, and I do want to get into this new song, but I just kind of want to cover some of the stuff. I know you had talked about last time about things being thematic, and a lot of the lyrics were represented in maybe some sort of game, or I know the Dark Souls has come up, and a few of the other things you had mentioned before. Now, is this a theme that you're sticking with, and is this also a visual theme added to this on stage? Because I wanted to say last time when we were talking, there was a little bit of alluded to like maybe that would carry over in a visual thing for you guys as well on stage somehow.
Yeah, so well, thematically it's always been like game related
Okay.
in a way. With this newest album, we've really like doubled down on like making that like our brand rather than just like a concept in the music.
When you say newest album, Wither.
Yes.
Okay.
So like really just like adopting like, we're a game that is focused, or we're not a game, we're a band that is focused towards like gamers.
Okay.
Like it's like if you are into like these kinds of games and stuff, or like into like high fantasy and like, like your Lord of the Rings and like just that kind of shit, like
Yeah.
your Dungeons and Dragons, you're probably going to be into the themes associated with the band. So like if you're a metalhead and a gamer, like we're the perfect fit for you. Like that
Nice.
is like we're like narrowing in on like that niche of like that's kind of our target audience. Like Joey and I both took like a lot of business classes and like marketing and stuff, and like
Yep.
narrowing in on like a brand and a theme and stuff is like really important to us, and we're trying to like do that and handle that without like being disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're trying to be ourselves, but also like make sure that we're like reflecting ourselves to like the proper like audience, I guess. So
Yeah.
like people like us,
Yeah. Your audience is
yeah.
you, like your customer avatar is basically you. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
And so yeah, like we're doubling down on like, making like the social media feel more like it's kind of like gamey, and like the artwork and lyrical themes and stuff. And like I've always had like the lyrical themes have like focused on like a fantasy like world, or like themes, or like mythological themes and stuff. But now I'm like kind of getting into the domain of like direct like references to like created worlds, and
Okay.
like almost like writing a book,
Okay.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And like Wither was kind of like introducing us to like the vestigial world, so to speak.
That's awesome. You know what's cool? What I was thinking as I was listening to the lyrics through the playthrough too, I was thinking about that in the back of my mind, how maybe some certain situations in games or overall as the game, how that would influence the lyrics. But also as I'm listening to the lyrics, I'm like, this kind of relates to me personally too. So I love how you kind of bridge the gap where you're not talking about something so far out that I wouldn't understand what the fuck
Right.
you're talking about. You start coming up saying something, if you reference a world here or there, that's like one of those little gems you were talking about, right? Where,
Yeah.
I picked that out. He's talking about that. But the rest of the overall lyrics still can be a personal experience where it's
Yeah.
like, I know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
so,
And like the the album like has multiple references to like the Hive or like this like overarching like antagonist, so to speak. But the songs themselves, all as our music always has, it talks more about like a metaphorical version of like personal issues, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's like it's relatable, but it's also high fantasy.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the goal. So
Oh yeah, dude, you crushed it on that. Like I said, like because some of those lyrics, talking to me personally, I'm like I see myself as because I see little characters and I imagine myself dressed up like that, and then like while I'm listening to your music, and I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, come on.
yeah.
So, do you have a question? Buddy? Go ahead.
I just had a tangent because you're talking about characters. So total tangent here,
Go ahead.
more related to gaming. When you create yourself a character in a game, right? Do you go for I'm making myself in the game, or do you pick some reptilian, crazy-looking creature like not human to be your character in game?
I feel like I usually go just for weird, like, and just like if I'm playing a game, like it's, I don't want to be myself.
No, I love to insert myself in the fantasy
really?
situation. So I'm like, how close does it look like me? I'll ask my kid and my wife. Does it look like me? Like, what do I need to change? So that's me. I like to insert myself into that world. That I feel like I'm more immersed if I get to be me in a game versus just like some random character. Tyler,
Yeah,
you
what about you,
game as well, right?
No, I usually just make an attractive woman. If I'm being completely honest.
My man knows what he's looking for.
If I'm gonna stare
play
at
this
something
game
all
for-
day, I'm gonna be staring at tits, man.
Well, that's for real. I want to look at something I like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 80 hours of this game, it better look good.
Go loop all the way back around to our Tomb Raider conversation
Exactly.
before we started. Like,
It started it all.
it's funny you say that. That's an interesting. I'm the same way as you. Like I'll put myself in the game because I want to know. But my kid used to play 2K all the time, and they have these wild ass builds. And I would come in, and he'd have some weird looking purple dude with a mohawk. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? He's like, it's my guy, man. I'm like, why would you build that? Like, and I'm all trying to make it look like me, in real. Like, I'm always in this realistic thing. Like, I got to be all real in a game or something. And he's got some fucking wild mohawk, fucking face mask with a bear helmet on it. I'm just like, what is going on? He's just all out there hooping. I'm like, okay, whatever.
I thought my kid was going to make a Khajiit character last night. She had it pulled up. She's looking at it. She's going through it. And then at the last second, she just bails on it and then just builds a regular human, Nord. So I think she just gets that from my DNA. She's just like, well, it was an idea, but I'd just rather be a Nord. I'm like, you already have a Nord on your other profile. This one's to go nuts on.
I always loved the Argonians. Like, that was my favorite.
Right.
They're funny looking.
I think sometimes the fun of those games are just creating the characters that you can come up with because
Oh,
they're
yeah.
so
Dude,
immersive. There's so
Yeah.
many. It's just being creative with different things.
That's as far as I got in the most recent Fallout game. My wife and I sat down to create the characters because I think you could make a wife and a husband or male
one or
and
the other,
female.
yeah.
So it took like an hour or more, and I look at her and I'm like, I'm spent. I'm done.
Sounds like you should just switch to The Sims, man.
Yeah, she loves it. She plays Sims.
That's awesome.
Good times.
All right, cool. So you guys want to talk about the new song?
Sure.
Want to talk about what we're about to listen to here in just a minute?
Yeah.
So new music. You said you demoed out a bunch of stuff, right, Tyler? You said right after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael did a bunch. I've been recently trying to demo some more stuff out as well. Got a good pool of songs so far now, but so far the new song is technically some of it's a little different than what we're used to. As far as I guess in my case, playability.
Okay.
Play style is a little bit out of the box of what I'm used to.
His
And-
fault.
No,
Oh,
well, some of it.
just
some
a
of-
conscious decision to
It's
go that far with it. Basically.
Yeah, it's I mean, personally, like with this new music, like I'm trying to like push all of our like boundaries as far as like our
Mhm.
actual physical limits and
Okay.
abilities. And you're gonna hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Sweet.
which
it's-
is a good thing. I mean, it makes us better.
yeah,
It's just
like I just want to keep like showcasing that we can keep growing and keep doing more and
Mhm.
I
keep
love that.
getting better. And like this song is kind of like, hey, anybody that's doubted us, like check this out. Like
Okay.
Yep.
if you have any questions about our abilities as musicians after this, then I don't know what to tell you. But like it is like all of us have solos
Oh,
on this
man.
song. It is an adventure from front to back and really diving into like the fantasy themes and like it's dark, it's evil, it's this one, like, story wise, it's like introducing like just like to like a part of the world, I guess, of like this new unknown album, so to speak,
Okay.
going forward. It's just a lot of like fantasy elements, dark elements and stuff, and like this song specifically is about like like a cycle of like servitude, essentially, to in this case like a necromantic like entity of kind of like pirates. It's
Okay.
very like kind of like pirate themed, like the music video is pirate themed and stuff, and yeah, so there's like this undertone of like servitude to like a cult, essentially, and there's lyrical themes about that, but in pertaining to like an undead fleet, essentially, that's
Sweet.
raiding this world, essentially. So
Okay. So the title of the song is what you sent me?
it is Watergrave.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So that, I guess that relates with the theme of the song. So this is just a single. You guys are just putting out a single?
Yep.
So are you going to approach whatever piece of music the same way almost with The Wither, as you just release singles as you go and then maybe have a whole body of work, or have you thought about that far out yet? Or
We've been discussing a lot of different ways to go about it. There's some creative ideas, there's some standard ideas, but we haven't really like nailed like exactly what we're doing. This song is kind of like a standalone single that we're not like announcing an album or anything. Obviously, we can sit here and talk about it. There is an album in the works, obviously, but this is not the start of that cycle. This is
okay.
the song will end up on this album, but it
Okay.
is just kind of like, hey, here's a taste. We're working on stuff. This is kind of what it's gonna be like, and yeah, once we get like release strategies and plans and stuff, and get everything recorded, obviously we'll go from there. But we do have a lot of creative ideas as far as releasing. A big thing I want to do is like delve into I started kind of with like a D&D theme on the release of like the Wither singles, where it was like kind of like telling a story and stuff. But I almost have the idea of having it be like I'm planning on making like a map for this world and
Oh.
everything, and like the singles will be different locations on the map.
Sweet.
Nice.
And one of the creative ideas we've discussed was like possibly having the fans decide where we go next on the map and decide the release of the singles that way. So maybe that route, but
Yeah.
again, this is like just we're talking preliminary like creative decisions and
Yeah.
figuring out that kind of stuff. But as of right now, this is the taste of what we're working on. So
Okay. Before I play this song, I have one more question though. So this will come out. I mean, this podcast comes out the 26th, right?
Yep.
And then the song comes out the 27th. Is
Correct.
that what we said, right? So obviously we'll be able to get a taste of the single
Mhm.
on here. What is the urgency to release this when the album just came out in July? Or
the biggest thing was we ran a 3-month marketing campaign on Wither. We wanted to see how organic reach does after the tail of a paid marketing campaign. See what organic content can do on the tail end of that with all of the new audience that we've received since July. So we're putting out the song. We have like other content planned around the song to see like how we can perform organically off of the tail end of a marketing campaign.
okay.
So
Cool.
it's really just kind of like a marketing test.
Oh, okay.
And then
But the song was ready.
yeah,
Yeah.
the song was there. It was
Yeah.
actually it was one that we were originally going to put on Wither,
Okay.
but thematically it made more sense to go on the follow-up.
Okay.
So it's kind of, just bridging the gap and, playing as like a marketing test essentially for us.
I like that. I think that's smart. That's how you build an audience, is know who your audience is and then know how to test to, especially if you're going to be creating that content, because it's all about content. I mean,
Mhm.
so. Well, do you guys want to listen to this track?
I'm a little tired.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Well,
Let's go.
I'm going to try not to blow your ears out. That's the whole thing, Oh, let's see here. Ba-da-doo.
So is this like maybe one of the last of the Wither writings?
Yeah.
Fuck yes. Fucking kings.
Dude, you guys are the fucking fucking masters, dude. I swear to God. Like, we have a lot of bands on this show and a lot of guys that have riffs, but you fuckers got some riffs, man. Fucking badass, dude. That
Yeah,
riff's so sweet.
Yeah, the riff that comes in right after the clean singing.
Yeah.
Like, so it's almost like
The hook
two
riff.
Yeah, two parts to the chorus there. That part especially gets me. And I'm glad you brought it back so many times. I'm like, yes, to this fucking riff every time. Fuck. I'm not tired of it. I want it again.
Oh, yeah.
So you got a solo on there?
Yep.
Assuming that might be the first one with the little whammy bar thing at the beginning?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes Joey's solo in like the little section with the slapping bass, and then my solo, and then his solos in like the breakdown section.
After that. Man, totally cool song. I can see how that does lead to its own theme, where there's some of the vestigial stuff in that song. Obviously, it's always going to be you guys, but it does have a different feel after being able to be more familiar with Wither. That's a little different,
Yeah, I mean,
little the same, but a little different, so I could see it almost a little more metal to me. Like, I don't. That's kind of a weird thing to fucking say on the show, but like, it's just more of a. Whereas Wither was more. Just comparing this one song to that, there wasn't as many like open parts on this. Like, there's a few of them in there, but when you guys really kicked it in, you really fucking kicked it in the ass on, So
a lot of metal riffing.
yeah, a lot more intense almost. I would
a
say
little more aggressive, I would say,
Yeah.
is our approach now.
Yeah,
But-
the theme going into like this new record that we're working on is like despair.
Okay.
Like, I want the album to feel like an uneasy listen, like you're being watched, like there's just like there's a guilt about it. And so like I'm working very hard on making the songs sound like that, and also have like themes around that, where when you're done listening to the album, I want you to just feel uneasy about what you listen to.
Well, how the fuck do you sing over some of those riffs, man? Like that, I mean, how much time do you spend? Because I know you talked about your process where you might come in with the vocals after the riff's already there. I'm sitting there listening to some of these riffs, and I'm like, you got to have that split down the middle brain just to be able to this side's operating that, because the vocal patterns don't ever go with
sometimes
the riffs.
sometimes they don't. No,
Yeah.
it's sometimes they're very difficult. Sometimes they come naturally, but like you said, having the split, the main thing to do is make sure you know that song by like second nature, so you're not putting any of your focus into playing, and 95% of your focus is singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah, because I know sometimes with the singing, a lot of times it'll go to more of a chordy kind of
Yeah.
open, where it makes sense because that's kind of how it's built. With the melody, the singing carries the melody, so the guitar don't have to be doing something crazy. But some of them heavy riffs, then whatever vocals are going on. Because I know are you doing some heavier stuff now too, though?
No,
vocally?
no,
you only do singing?
I stopped screaming after the Crown of Serpents.
Okay, because I remember on the last podcast you had said something about you doing some of the screaming.
Yep, yeah, I did
So
some
it
of the
must have just
screams
been on
on
that
Crown
one.
of Serpents,
Okay.
and then I think I had like a couple parts on the Painted World, but
Okay.
like when I started singing, I wanted to like reserve my voice for that. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So all the screaming is you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with
Go ahead, buddy.
the riffs being as complicated as they are, it's my understanding, Michael, you're writing the lyrics, correct?
Yes.
Or so it's not a shared process. You're-
sometimes he writes lyrics, but most of the
Okay.
time I do.
Mm-hmm.
So my question, Tyler, is: are you having to kind of like finesse the lyrics for the sake of the playing? Like, okay, that's too many syllables, or can we? Is there some negotiation there, or?
Yeah, I mean, there can be some negotiation. For the most part, he's already got a good handle on what I can handle.
Okay.
So sometimes like, a couple times be like, maybe that would be wouldn't really make sense. Maybe that would be harder than it needs to be.
Right.
But sometimes,
But we're not changing drastically,
No,
right?
no.
We're, like, you've got an understanding of the meter. I feel like you can get this many words in,
Mhm.
tweak it if you got it.
Yeah, and like
but-
I lay down like my own like whisper screams
okay,
for him to like start with, essentially.
and then you just tell him, "I can do it, so you have to do it."
Yeah, and it's like I'll literally just do like kind of like
Sure.
whisper screams like
Yeah, yeah.
over it, and then that's how the demos start, and then he comes in and like makes
That's his thing.
them sound proper.
refine
Sure.
things if necessary, or change maybe like how the vocal tonality is. Maybe
Sure.
screams here, lows here, blah blah blah.
Right. So he's just kind of like phrasing it out, but you're dictating the highs and the lows, and
For the most part, yeah, whatever.
And- kind of falling in line with where he's placing the words, though.
Mhm.
Like that doesn't change too much.
Not too much.
Okay.
No, usually I'm also on the same page of, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I like it
Okay.
already.
All right. Okay. I know that when I have to write it, I'm like, Jesus, this is an endeavor. But to have somebody else do it for me and then have to learn it, it'd be like extra work.
The only thing that sucks is that since I'm not writing the lyrics, sometimes I have a harder time remembering them.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
it's not me doing it. But
Right.
I'm getting better at that too. It's definitely not as hard as it used to be. I think my brain's a little less foggy nowadays. So
That's good.
I have difficulty with that too. If Larry writes something, I cannot remember it at all, or
Right.
even half the time, if he comes with a riff and we play it, it takes me a long time. If I come up with it, anything, or it's my
Mhm.
idea, I remember it right away. But
Exactly.
it's something about learning something else that somebody shows you always seems to be more difficult, at least
Yeah.
for me. So
yeah, for sure.
cool, man. So badass
it.
single, badass production as always. So can we dive into a little bit more of that? What DAW do you use?
I use Reaper.
You use Reaper?
Yeah,
And you do all of the MIDI shit in Reaper too?
Yeah, I've been using Reaper since I was 15.
Really?
Yep.
For some reason, I
I'm
thought you had like Cubase or something crazy like that.
No, Reaper.
Okay, because I
I'm
have
inspired.
Reaper, and I usually use Pro Tools, right? But the problem is with Pro Tools is the VST instruments, it's not very friendly to put all of that extra MIDI and draw all that in. So that's why I was wondering how you approach that to add all of them extra elements. Because you're using a VST or something inside a Reaper, right?
Mhm.
And then you're drawing in the MIDI. Is that how you're doing it on a MIDI
Yeah,
track?
so I use a piano, or not
Yep,
a piano,
MIDI
but a
keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually have it broken up into 4 sessions. We have a tracking session, a production session, a vocal session, and a mix session. I track everything, guitar, drums, like the band goes in the tracking session. We do vocals in the vocal session. And then in the production session, I just set up a bunch of like crazy shit, like violins and all that, and play stuff in. And then all of that gets bounced down to audio, and it all goes to the mix session. So all the audio from the 3 other sessions get exported out and then pulled up into a mix session, and then I mix everything.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's kind of like goes in those stages though, where it's like we get the tracking, and then we go to vocals, and then I sit there and I come up with all these like crazy ear candy and production ideas, and then it gets shipped into the mix. And usually by the time I'm like halfway through the mix, I end up adding more bullshit.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's just a layer process where
Yeah.
it just kind of builds.
So forgive me for sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about, because I don't.
Honesty is the best policy, Nick.
Yep.
Thank
When
you.
you're recording like the keyboard parts, is that something that's stored on the keyboard and then you just drag that file, that whole audio into the mix, or do you play it live to the recording of?
So a virtual instrument is driven by MIDI. The keyboard sends MIDI signals to the computer, and it writes a MIDI track in real time, just like you're recording audio.
Okay.
But the MIDI track tells the virtual instrument like what note to play, essentially. So like if I play a C on the keyboard, it writes a C in the MIDI, and then that MIDI tells the instrument, "Hey, I'm playing a C note."
Okay.
So for like the orchestra, I'll play like piano chords, and then I'll
Right.
break that into triads, and take the triads and whatever the fuck a 4-note chord is.
Yeah,
I also
like
do
a-
those,
yeah.
but like there's triads and like the 4-note chords, and then I'll have the members of the orchestra. Like I've studied like how the orchestra is supposed to play
Yeah.
different chords,
Right.
and so like I'll have the different like sections play like the respective notes, and then I'll have them like it's all organized to where like this is how an orchestra would play it.
Yeah.
I don't just sit there and play chords and match the guitars.
Yeah.
I play what an orchestra would play the best I can on a piano, and then I break it down into an entire orchestra section. And then those are placed within a virtual orchestra room. So like I take virtual orchestra instruments, like violins, cellos.
Is that
double bass.
Heaviosity? Is that the stuff that
I
you
use Heaviosity, performance samples. Those are like my 2 main ones for the actual orchestra pieces. I also use Audio Imperia stuff. But I take all of this, and then I use a thing called Berlin Studio, which is a convolution reverb that takes the signals you put into it, and it places them inside of the Berlin orchestra room.
Okay.
And you can put them in the different sections. So like I can take the violin and place it in this spatial reverb where a violin goes over here, and then I can put second chair violins here, cellos over here,
like stereo width.
Yeah, and so like when I can take whatever library I want from different manufacturers, feed them all into this reverb, and make them sound like they're all played in the same room.
That's badass.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So like I've pretty much like constructed our own like orchestra sound like that I use with like my libraries, and I've mixed and matched things to where I get the results I want out of that and make it all sound cohesive. And that's just the orchestra. That's its own like event that I do. And then on top of that, I'm doing synths, I'm doing bass drops, I'm doing little like Foley, like there was like rain and ocean waves in that. And like I get really in depth with that part because like I want it to sound like a movie essentially. And that shit's fun, dude. I love that. It's
and them little production techniques that you do in there where everything goes down and it's like a low pass on it, and so everything's just got that real like radio sound at times. You know, it's just little tricks like that, them production tricks which I really appreciate. I was just wondering in MIDI, so MIDI's pretty easy to deal with in Reaper then?
I think so.
Okay.
I think Logic probably has one of the best like MIDI systems, but I don't use Apple.
Yeah. Right.
And like Reaper, like I said, I've been using it since I was 15.
Yeah.
It might not be user friendly. I don't think Reaper is the most user friendly interface to begin with.
Yeah.
But I'm so used to it that like if you were to ask me to use any other DAW, I would not have a fucking clue.
Right.
I don't know how to use anything other than Reaper.
Yeah. Especially if you're trying to use Pro Tools. If you ever try to use that thing's a pain in the fucking ass. Even half the shortcuts that you would use on any other program like Reaper, I do a lot of the stuff on FL Studio, and then I used to record on Reaper. Then I moved to Pro Tools, so the last album we did was on Pro Tools. But now we're incorporating some more elements into our music that we're trying to do. So I'm just trying to look the best way to streamline it because I'm doing all the metal stuff in Pro Tools, but then I'll go to FL to do any of the programming just because that's how I know how to do all the MIDI and programming. In Pro Tools, you try to program and use a VST, and it's just, dude, it's like fighting an uphill battle trying to figure it out. And sometimes the VSTs like aren't in tune. For some reason, they're in tune in FL, but when you go to use them in Pro Tools, you play a C and it's not a C. Like there's some weird pitch thing going on. Yeah, it's weird. Like that's what I'm saying. It's just like problem after problem, and I want to learn how to streamline my process so I can start adding some other elements and some of the music I'm trying to do. I mean, I have Reaper. I bought it. I used to use it all the time. That was what the first 3 Infinite Design records were on, was Reaper. So.
I love Reaper, man.
Yeah.
Like I also use like the SWS extensions for Reaper.
Okay.
I recommend those like that as like a baseline. You should be using those because they add so much functionality, especially for like editing.
Okay.
I do a lot of like slip and stretch editing, especially for drums. No stretch editing for drums, but a lot of slip editing for drums. And the functions in those scripts, it's like Beat Detective on crack, dude.
Okay.
It's so nice. So like I can like use dynamic splitting. Slip things to the grid, and like I do it all by hand. I don't use like an automated tool like Beat Detective to quantize. Like I don't like quantizing. I think quantizing sounds bad most of the time.
It's too on the grid at that point. It loses a lot of its human feel if you don't do it right. There's a finesse to it, like anything.
But I do use dynamic splitting at least. I split everything. It does auto fades, and then I use those and I manually slip all of my audio into place. And like that's what I'll do for a band that's doing like live drums, like Recorruptor, like to give it like it sounds real, like it's still real, obviously. Like he played all of that, and it's like everything is 100% like raw and live, and I'm not quantizing anything, but I'm editing it enough to where it sounds professional, it sounds tight, and I mean he already plays pretty damn close, obviously, but like that for like for like those kinds of bands where it's like they're playing like that live shit, like I don't want to quantize. I don't want to make it sound like a robot, but I also don't want to just leave it completely raw because nobody does that.
No, not in metal.
Yeah,
metal's so precise.
Yeah,
you know?
so and that's how I get like great results. Is like I use Reaper's dynamic splitting and all that, and then I also run like MIDI audio to MIDI to get MIDI triggers on like say like the kick drum, like so we can use MIDI for the kick drum. I love Reaper for editing. It does a very good job with editing. yeah, I think MIDI's fine. Like I do a lot of MIDI work in Reaper anyways. But yeah,
Well,
I like it.
Well, that makes things a little easier for me. I might start diving into Reaper a little bit more and transfer some of my stuff over there.
Yeah,
And see
I just
if can-
recommend trying the SWS extensions.
Okay,
That's not
check
super like
them.
MIDI focused. It's mostly for like audio tools and editing and stuff. But yeah, I love those extensions. They make a huge difference. And you can customize Reaper to like do like whatever you want. Really, it's it's kind of, I think it's open source maybe. I don't remember.
Well, they do have a free Reaper, and then they have one that's like, oh, you mean open source as far as anybody can.
Yeah, like you can like
navigate it
make
and-
things for
yeah,
it, like
yeah,
these extensions, and
yeah.
like you can
Themes and
change the
stuff,
themes
yeah.
and like So yeah, I feel like as long as you know what you're after, you can make Reaper do what you want.
Okay, cool.
And
I think when this pod drops, I'm gonna like have it on my desktop and just listen to his portion of the production on a loop. I'm gonna get good. I'll never be as good as Michael. I accept it. It's fine. I just want to know what the fuck he just said, so I can do these things.
Yeah, talking production though, like with that new song, we're using all real amps now. So like that was a Mesa Boogie Badlander, yeah. So we're using a Mesa Boogie Badlander, and then the bass is a Mesa Carbine M6.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're getting like a lot of that like raw tone feel.
Yeah, like
kind
an
of
impulse response, like the
Yeah.
actual movement of the cabinets.
Yeah, so it's like
that you
it's
don't
it's a
normally get with a
real amplifier
yeah.
running through cab simulations. So like it's like the best of both worlds in my opinion, because I'm getting like that the sag and like the movement that I
Yeah.
like out of a real amp, and
Yep.
then the precision and like the quality control I can get over an IR. So like I'm using like Cabinetron to get use like a blend of different IRs,
Mm-hmm.
like phase aligning them and everything. So yeah, using like real amps and stuff. We're still doing MIDI drums, Superior Drummer, tuned the same way like Mike's kit is. But
Death and Darkness.
Yep, Death and Darkness kit.
I've been looking at that, and I'm just like,
dude.
man, I haven't dropped the 200 bones on it yet, but it's like I keep looking at it, and I'm like,
It's worth it.
$200. Is it gonna go on sale?
Yeah, dude,
I've
it's
been
worth
thinking
it.
about that since the day you said that on the last podcast. I
Yep.
swear to God, all the time, I'm like, I need to get that.
Yeah,
Because them
dude.
drums sound good on that stuff I sent you, like the drum
Yeah.
kit, like sounds
Yeah.
pretty good, but it's basically like just a different version of that, but it's $200, like different drum sounds, and
Christmas is coming.
Oh, I watched,
Friday.
dude. I watched every video on that bitch, dude. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I watched how they made it. I was on TuneTrack. I've been on that site like 9 times. I just haven't pulled the
So-
trigger on it yet.
I've been I started a new method with the drums on the new song and like the stuff going forward, where I'm taking Superior Drummer and like rather than treating it like a MIDI instrument, I'm treating it like a live instrument,
Okay.
where I've tuned it exactly to how like Mike's kit sounds. It's all the same cymbals, same shells, and I'm exporting that as audio to be a real drum set, essentially, like what I would pretty much consider like my finished product of editing live drums.
So yeah, so you would take that MIDI, dump it to audio,
Yep.
but each individual
Yes.
track. So,
So
you have the
it's I have
cymbals, a
I have
snare,
the
a
multi-tracks
kick. Yep.
of a like live recorded drum set.
Yep.
And then what I'm doing is I'm taking the I don't know if you've seen like the Josh Middleton drum kit
Oh
that
yeah.
he just recently dropped,
Yeah.
the Ultimate Heavy drums.
Yep.
He sold one shots, or not one shots, but TCIs
Yep.
from that.
Yep.
So I'm taking the TCIs from that and I'm using those as like my sample enhancement for the live kit.
Oh.
So it sounds like real drums being enhanced by samples and like getting like the exact drum tone we want out of it. And then I'm taking all of that and I'm using that same method of like convolution reverb, like I was talking about with the orchestra,
Okay.
where I'm combining all of like these different elements of the kits into a singular room, and I'm creating like my own room sound
Okay.
with the drums. And so like I'm getting like a customized drum sound out of MIDI drums that like is as close to live as I can get, essentially. So
Yeah.
like it's damn near like on the precipice of real drums, like as far as like the work method and like the sound and all of that, and like, you know, I put in like the little nuances of humanization, like I by hand I'm like moving little bits here and there, and like I do as much as I can to make the drums sound like real. So between that and like using like the real amps, the real bass amps, and like just all of those like different like production elements together, I feel like we're getting a more unique and like old school, not like old school, but like old school in the sense of like it kind of feels like a band in a room.
Yeah.
With all of like the modern techniques applied to that. So it's like I'm always trying to do the best of both worlds, like, you know, death metal and metalcore, like two favorite like kind of genres, and like old school techniques and like modern techniques, and just like always like trying to blend like the two things that don't make sense together all the time, but like make them work together.
I love it. I love writing songs like from an organic space, like we're all of our instruments in a room, 4 guys jamming in a room, but then you want to come to the album and say, but we're going to add all this other stuff, the orchestration, the samples, and so everything goes on a grid, you know, everything's to a click track. And it gives you so much more depth when listening to the album where, hey, this part, the music drops out. It's just rain, water, waves, a couple other sounds, what have you, so that this part of the song is, you know, it's just heady. It's just, you're just listening to sounds. It's not even musical, but it's on a click. And if you rehearse to it at home and in the band's practice space together, you can bring the album to life on a stage. And I think that's what I want as a listener. You know, I want more than just 2 guitars, bass and drums and vocals. I want all that other stuff. I want the whole orchestra that you can't bring with you. You can't bring 20 people everywhere you go and have an orchestra. This is our band. Nobody's doing that. I want that, though. I want to hear the orchestration, and I want to hear all the samples. I don't need 9 guys on stage to do that. Just bring the 4 guys, and then the laptop or the box, what have you, and then everybody's rehearsed.
He keeps saying the box like it's some magic fucking box.
It is. I want to see it. I want the cube. The cube. Does it have a name?
And that's
the Hive.
The Hive. The Hive box.
No, but I mean that's like kind of like the same, like exactly my perspective, because it's like the stuff that matters is on stage. Like you're seeing the people, the real people that care about their music, playing their instruments that they care about, that they like want to show that they're like they can really play.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's challenging that. Like, after listening to that track, like, you guys play. Like, and all the other tracks that we've already listened to, like, you guys are players. Like, nobody should be questioning that part. It's just, you can't bring...
They're out of their fucking mind if they're questioning that.
You can't just bring a symphony orchestra to the stage with you, but it makes sense in the song. It's what you guys are about, and I think people should be granted that when they go to see you. Like,
and like, I want to, like, keep that authenticity, like, from the album to the stage of like you're hearing a band surrounded by other elements, and like when you see us live, you're hearing a band surrounded by other elements. It's not other elements with a band kind of following that. It's we're always first. Like everything's following us. It's not we're following anything else.
Yeah.
So
no, and I think that's readily clear when you're listening to the track. It's you guys are very instrument forward. And then just the backing tracks, and they come forward at some point, they kind of like assume, hey, there's more than just the band here, but it all comes from the band. I think people ought to respect that as well. It's not like somebody else did this for you.
Yeah, I'm not just like dragging in splice samples or anything like that. I'm like sitting here playing,
like making the samples.
Yeah, like I put more work into like our backtracks and stuff than like even some of the like actual recording process.
Yeah.
Like
sure. I bet.
Like when
depth.
you're listening to that, you're hearing both of us actually like meticulously like getting into like, writing like how should this orchestra lead go? How should this piano go? And you might not even really fucking hear it, to be honest, in some of these parts. But like there's like bits where it's like if you mute the whole band, you're still getting like a full like orchestrated experience. And like a big part too for like this next album is I want it to have like the ability to like mute everything else and still get like a musical experience. Yeah. So like it's almost like 2 different worlds, being mushed together. And my plan for the next album would be to have the album itself and then an orchestral version where it's all of those other elements isolated. So if the listener cares to hear it, they can just see like, oh, here's like I didn't really notice that in the actual song because there's a
Yeah.
dude screaming over it for
Yep.
30 seconds.
Right.
But like that kind of stuff is like some of the most interesting parts to me because like behind the scenes I'm like putting so much effort into that, and I think it'd be cool for people to like be able to hear that. So like focusing on having the songs have that continual driving force to where like without the band it still stands on its own, but it's complementing the band.
Yeah. Ishan from Emperor.
Yeah.
So his solo album that came out this year, he has 2 versions of it.
Okay.
One is the version with everything on it, and the other version is just the stripped down all of his orchestral
Nice.
stuff that he does. But he
Yeah.
kind of does the same thing. He programs all that. He does all of the, he builds it himself. He's not just dragging and dropping. Going back to your drum tone too, anybody can kind of throw something into Superior Drummer and use that. It's about how you take that and make it your own, so it doesn't sound like the 100,000 other people that have that same plugin.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
at least it makes it your own. And I could tell even the tones were different than, freshly from listening to this newest Water Grave to Wither this morning, like the tones you can tell are even different from that. So
Yeah, kind of answered my question. Like, have the whole orchestration on like a side 2 or a B side or an entirely separate release, or just put it out there. I think that's a really good idea. I think people would get a kick out of that, especially gamers where they're like, I don't think I can focus with all of the screaming and the guitars right now, but I could definitely listen to the orchestra and vibe, read a book, or play a
I was
game.
gonna say, yeah, or if you're playing tabletop or something like that,
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
something cool to put in the background, something that
Yeah,
still
sure.
takes you on a journey,
And
like you're in the journey as you're playing. That's a great idea.
and that's
dude.
like part of that whole like theme shift to where it's like the gaming thing is like a brand now. It's like this is like a big focus is making all of those elements. Like that's just one of the parts of that machine where it's like I want to be able to have, like in this new album there's like a lot more like story driven to it where there's like actual like, call outs of like names of like the locations in the world and all that. So like there's more of that where it's like, it's building a world. And it's like with that world building, I want there to have like it to be a soundtrack to this world that we're building, and to be able to have parts of that we can separate and like have like this is the soundtrack to the band experiencing the world that we built. So it's
Yeah.
like just furthers in on like that whole like DIY and like making everything like it's I'm practically like writing a book, I'm writing the music, I'm writing an adventure in the world, and like there's just so much that like us as a group of 4 people are like making out of something so simple as just a metal band. Like it's more expansive than that.
and immersive.
Mhm.
If you really diving into it, that gives you more of those gems, more of those little things I'm looking for than just Nick and I just banging our head to the heavy riff. Like there's more to it. There's
But you can
more of
also
an
just
adventure.
do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you
So,
can just
yeah.
accept it at face
Yeah.
value all
Right.
you want, and like
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And most metal people aren't like into like lyrics and really getting into that kind of stuff. But like
Right.
if they just hear a badass riff, like that's fine.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to take away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome. I want to shift gears just a little bit. I want to try to ask some of these style questions on the show a little bit more, because sometimes we really get into the weeds and you almost have to be a musician to understand what we're talking about, because we can get very
Well, you could be an aspiring musician.
so, and this is where I'm kind of going with that. So I want to know, because you are, both you guys are stellar musicians at what you do.
Stellema.
Stellema
Goddamn.
musicians. So, Batum hiss, got him. But what advice would you give for an aspiring guitar player, and then especially getting into metal? Like, can you tell us just a little bit about what that would take in becoming at a proficient level of playing in a band or recording, for that matter?
I guess I could just break it down into a few points. Play to a metronome, fucking for sure.
Hear that a lot.
At
so-
least have a basic understanding of theory. Like, at least understand what scales and modes are. You don't have to get, super crazy and nitpicky about it, but it definitely helps.
whole, half, whole, whole. There it is.
Yeah, just in general, just knowing what the different interval shapes look like, so kind of half-ass what you're doing.
Mhm.
Um,
It's a good way to communicate.
and then, realistically, just the obvious thing, practice a lot. Just
Yeah, more than you think.
a lot more than you think.
I think that's the problem, especially with younger kids nowadays. They'll
Yeah.
spend time on something. Even my son, and he likes to play basketball, and I'm just telling him, and he talks about like NBA guys or whatever, and I'm just like, you do know how much time, like, you should be out there from morning till night if you're like talking NBA level, So when it comes to playing your instrument, I've been of this lately too, where I'm practicing my ass off because I kind of slacked on it for a while. You get so good, and then you kind of just rely on your laurels of how good you have gotten over the years, and then you sit and try to play something challenging that you wrote, and then you're like, I need to clean that up. So for me, especially with playing shows and everything lately, I think you just need to practice more than what you actually think you need to practice.
Yeah, when I was first starting out, I was probably in my room, 4 or 5 hours every single day, every day, and that shoots you up very fast too.
And that's not noodling. That's like focused. I'm sitting down and I'm working on this with a metronome for X amount of time, and then I'm moving on to this, right? Because
well, the metronome advice is in retrospect, because I never played to a metronome, but I just not just recently, but after a while, finally started doing it. So at first, learning stuff, it was just learning covers, playing other people's songs, and then playing a shit ton of solos, and just playing those over and over again until I got them right. But then metronome became very important when we started doing band shit. Like, oh hey, I'm not as good as I thought.
yeah, because you're just used to playing freely along.
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
And then as soon as you see where that grid's at in that timeline, and then when you really record, and then you look at your wave, and you're like, it sounded right, but it doesn't fucking look right because it's not on grid,
Yeah,
I
I clean up
the
a lot of
strongest men.
Yeah, that metronome. Yeah, I shared that little meme that says everybody's gangster till the metronome pulls up.
Exactly. Relatable.
Yeah.
Call it red light syndrome. Start recording, you just sound like shit, man.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I practice it a lot, I swear.
Right.
So I would like to direct that question towards you, but maybe more towards a production aspect. Say somebody wanted to get into production. It doesn't necessarily have to be metal, but just production in general. What advice could you give, Michael, just, looking back at your journey, and what maybe some things you would do or suggest?
I would say music in general. I would say don't be afraid to look stupid. A lot of people are afraid to fail. They're afraid to look dumb. They're afraid to try something different. They're afraid to stray from the norm. Don't be. Like, you don't achieve greatness without failure, in my opinion.
Man, you sound like me. I say this to my kid. I'm like, it sounds like a conversation I just had with my kids, so I'm very validated in that. Continue, please.
Yeah, so, like, don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to look stupid, and like, feel it. Like, obviously technical practice and like the theories and all of that is important, but in my opinion, more importantly is to feel what you're doing. And like, if there's no passion, there's no product. Like, you can hash out generic metal song number 5 fucking 30,000 times in a row all you want, but if you really want to make music that, fuck everybody else, if you want to make music that moves you, you need to be passionate about it, and you need to feel it. The song needs to move something in you. A lot of the times when I listen through like our albums, I will like physically feel like moved, goosebumps, and like no other music does that to me except our own. Like, some of it comes close, but like, because I know like the passion, like the life experiences and everything I put into our music, I feel it on a lot deeper level than anybody else is going to. And like, that's, in my opinion, what's most important about music, is having that outlet of expression, and you don't get that anywhere else. Like, if you're going to be a musician, if you're aspiring to do that in any capacity, production, writing, playing guitar, drums, whatever it is, you can leave yourself somewhere in the audio. And like, your goal should be to do that. Okay. That is, like, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, in my opinion.
I love that answer. And I think, I'd heard this a little bit in your answer. At the end of the day, you kind of have to do it because you would love to do it too. Like, you can't expect an outcome. We've talked about this on the show. Right. These outcome-based things are You know, you have to do it because you love it. Nick and I do this show because we love to talk to dudes like you and, you know, share your music with us, and we can dive into it and talk to you guys about it and get into your brain. And we enjoy doing that, you know, listening to releases or whatever topic we decide. That we do that because we love it. You know, you can't do it because you want to have X outcome. I think you maybe after a while you can get there once you've brushed up your skill set and got that far in your journey. Maybe you can think about, oh, I want to do this because of this, but I think it all stems, like you said, it has to speak to you first and be inside. You know, some dude left a comment the other day. These two dudes sit around the table and talk about nothing for hours, and I'm just like, and you're on
To
the,
you.
and you're on the,
To you.
I'm gonna say, and you're on the internet talking about two dudes that talk about nothing for hours, and you're commenting on it. So who the fuck's the idiot here? I don't know. It's just shit like that. It's like we do it because we love to do it. What do you want us to do? Fucking
Why are you mad?
yeah, like we're not running for president. Like what the fuck are we doing? We're just talking about metal. Like what? I don't understand. I didn't understand that comment, but it just kind of related to what you were saying. Like do it because you love to do it. Do it because it moves you.
And like that's like we've gotten comments similar to that in the past, like especially from, you know, the Crown of Serpents to Painted World era where like the singing came in and stuff.
Okay,
It was like
Metalcore.
like fucking sellouts and like, you know,
God.
like you probably have to be making money to be a sellout, but you know, just like getting like the comments of like, you know, like somebody else like is always going to have an opinion about what you should be doing, but like they don't really think about it from your perspective of like, you know, I'm always writing what I want to write. I'm not writing anything for anybody else. So like you don't like it, then I don't care. But another tidbit though, as far as like the production stuff, if we want to like talk about like getting into that.
Sure, dude. We got all the time in the world, man.
Do not sell yourself to the trends. Don't fucking invest into the YouTube videos. Don't hop on the latest plugin. None of that shit makes you any better. I've seen so many amateur producers, like up and coming producers, like they see the new plugin, they see everybody talking about the new plugin, and they think they need it. Next week is a different story. Like you have the tools you have that you can afford. Don't spend money that you don't have. Don't spend money that you need to live on something that you don't need. Like just use what you have until you truly understand why you might need the thing that you wanted. And
that's great advice.
And that is 100% retrospective. I'm guilty. Like
that's why I raised my hand.
I've spent thousands. Like I kind of like in my head roughly added up what I've spent on like audio libraries, plugins, all of that.
Yeah.
Easily like 10 to 20 grand.
And sounds about right.
Over the course of, you know, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And do I need all of that? I probably needed maybe half of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just lessons learned and stuff along the way. But, like, you know, there's a lot of these, I'll call them, like, cults or, like, cliques in the audio community and, like, you know, in every community. Like, metal has it too. But, like, there's cliques of groups that, like, they're going to subscribe to a certain idea. They're going to say, like, oh, this guy is, you know, like, the god of our generation. Everybody should listen to him. Or, you know, this is like the new game changer of the industry, or this is like the greatest technological advancement. None of that shit matters if you can't make music sound good. And like at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make music sound good to you, and you're trying to make it like represent the ideas that you're putting through it in an accurate way. And understanding your tools that you have and being creative and, you know, again, not being afraid to look stupid or go against the norm or be like, you know, shun the ideas of like, oh, I'm not going to subscribe to that new idea of like, oh, I have to use this tool, I have to use this thing, because, you know, at the end of the day, you're not trying to sound like everybody else. You're trying to sound like you, and you're trying to do your own thing. And as early as you can accept that idea and run with it, the quicker you're going to be successful, in my opinion. So
that's great advice. You know, to piggyback a little bit off that, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think if I had to invest in one thing from the producer aspect, like right off the rip, I would use my stock, whatever I have, whatever it is, if it's FL or Reaper stock, because Reaper comes with stock compressors and an EQ. But if you don't know how to use the Reaper stock compressor EQ. You shouldn't be fucking with a Waves or a Slate
Yep.
EQ or a SSL. You know, like none of that. You should even be worried about that. You should learn the tools, like you said. But I would invest in anything. I would invest in like some ear training.
Yep.
Like frequency training for the ear, some program like that. That's what I would do differently. That would be the thing I would invest in, because then you can make the most out of those tools. Then you don't have to buy this next. And a lot of it, you know, because you said you did the marketing and shit, a lot of it's just trying to sell you some shit anyway.
I didn't even know they had that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, you know, that at the end of the day, it's like, oh, yeah, like ear training stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll give you like tests, like frequencies, 600, and then you'd like do the little test on the computer to see what frequency they cut out and everything.
Oh,
like,
shit,
it's like,
maybe I should do that.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
like a
and, like,
whole mixing like
It
course.
it
for
turns
your ears.
you like there's like a difference between like producer people and listeners. Like
Yeah, I, don't
I
hear
will
half the
listen
shit
to a
he talks
song
about.
and I'll be like, oh man, there's too much of X frequency
Yep.
or like something like that, and like nobody else fucking understands what I'm saying,
and they don't care.
No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
and
oh,
like
it sounds
that,
good, whatever.
and that I think is the key to being a good producer too, is knowing most people do not care. You're trying to make stuff sound good and unique and like reflect to the listener, and like, you know, sometimes a guitar tone might need a little bit more 4K just to sound that more like aggressive, or like maybe you want it to be that way.
Yeah.
And like, you know, a lot of these like top high-end producers are making decisions that some amateurs might find not like correct, like not their version of like sterile correct, like clean, but it's serving the song
Yes.
in a way that the producer knew what they were doing by like, you know, leaving in that kind of like artifact or frequency or something. And also like it's just, you know, there's a collection of like moves and tools available to people, and like they have to know when to hold off as well, rather than like get over critical and over surgical. And I guess my last bit of advice would be that like you were saying, like piggybacking off of the ear training, like the ears are the most important thing. Like, you know, wear earplugs when you're going to shows. When you're in your room, have the, like, you know, if you're going to blow money on anything, blow it on fucking speakers. Like,
Good
those speakers
speakers,
better
yeah.
be, you know, the best thing that you have in your entire setup.
Yeah, for sure.
That and your room
Yeah, you got to know your
needs some
room.
fucking treatment,
Yeah.
or you need to know how it sounds.
Yeah, you got to know your room fucks up everything you hear
Yeah.
too. Like if you don't know that, you're gonna just have a bad day.
Yeah, so like if you don't understand what your room is doing to what you're listening, then learn that first.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, know how to fix that.
Yeah.
So like, you know, get some panels, some treatment. Like if you're
Dampen.
hearing these things and you learn how to fix them, that's your first step to being like a professional engineer, is learning how to fix the way your room is affecting your listening experience, so that you can better hear what you're trying to achieve with unimpeded, essentially unimpeded by your room, unimpeded by your speakers. That's the first step. Any professional can mix a great song on stock plugins with a good room, understanding how it works, and a good set of speakers.
Just like anything else, less is more sometimes too. Eric Stroud from the Black Tempo was on the show last week or the week before.
2 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
and then we were talking about, because he produces all of his own stuff too, and he's just on his journey of learning everything, you know, and he's starting to churn out some mixes that are starting to sound more like what he had envisioned in his mind, and that always is a good feeling. But he said once he started discovering some of these things, he went back and looked, and he's got 25 plugins on one channel, and he's like, you know, you're just making that worse sometimes. You don't need, like, you got to make that sound good without all of that shit, and then maybe you need to add a little couple things here and there, but it's just more like salt and pepper on the top. That's the way I always like to look at it. You got to be able to cook a delicious steak right off rip. Sometimes it may need a little seasoning like afterwards, but a lot of times, like if you got that steak tasting good, nice and juicy coming up front, know how to cook it, know how to marinate it, know how to let it sit and rest, all those kind of things, right, Nick?
Yep,
So,
yep.
you know, you got to have that good signal going into it.
Source is king.
Yep.
The source is the most important bit.
So I want to backtrack just a little bit. You had alluded to, I know you have theory knowledge, right? So when and you do some of the production as well, as far as like the keyboards and the orchestration and stuff. Now, how does that come in when you guys are doing that? Is that still an afterthought, like the riffs you talked about, or is that still something that you approach with, hey, this needs to work, Michael, together to make sense? Or
a lot of it seems afterthought. Like, okay, yeah, hey, this would be cool here, this would be cool here, and what would be the best approach on how to incorporate the symphony into that. And it's, some of the riffs we write, we're just like, I'm writing this riff in mind, knowing that there's going to be, orchestra on top of that. But I mean, process is still generally the same.
So you guys are sitting down in that bucket that you talked about. You're in that third like production bucket where you're adding the production and stuff. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you're there too, or some of the times you're there too, and you guys are just kind of both touching that keyboard and stuff. Is that what? Just seeing like, hey, this will sound good. So I want to. Might be a weird question, but it just popped in my head. When do you decide not to put something in there? Like it's too much. Like it's like how do you balance, because you guys are so busy on the instruments and stuff? How do you balance that? Like, is it too much shit on top, or is it not enough? You know what I mean? Like, how do you make that decision?
A lot of times it's honestly trial and error.
Yeah.
Like the song that you just heard, there was more. There was more, and it was like, no, it's not serving the song anymore.
Yeah. It's taken away from the song at that point.
So like,
usually the relationship between the guitar and drums would probably dictate that in a lot of instances.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's just like, you try something and you're like, oh no, we need to leave it. It's cooked. Like we don't need to burn it.
Right. Yeah. Because I know that because a lot of times you could be fucking noodling around on the keyboard and everything sounds cool over the top because it's just another sound, but it's that making that right decision of, we just got to leave this alone and maybe only put a small like layer underneath here. It doesn't have to be this busy piano or, Yeah,
it's been kind of disappointing sometimes too, because you'd write this awesome orchestra part and then slap it on top and you're like, they don't sound good anymore.
Too much.
Yeah. They didn't play well together for whatever
Went
reason.
to Lorna Shore with it. It's fucking too much.
Yeah.
I like Lorna Shore, but sometimes I'm like, wow, with the orchestra, holy cow.
Yeah, it can be a little much. So,
are you guys big on hidden tracks? You gonna give us like the 60-minute wait to the hidden track?
Such a funny premise to have, like in the streaming day and age. Like,
like people just don't get it. Like, you buy a new CD and you like, what are we getting? And then there'd be the little snippet in between. You got like a 10-minute gap of nothing, but there's a little something in the middle, and then there's the thing at the end.
Wasn't that Tool Anima did that at the end? There's like this long ass thing, and at the very, very end, there's like a little snippet of something. I thought
Undertow.
Was. Oh, Undertow.
They had Disgustipated.
Slipknot was like that.
Silosis did it too for one album.
Yep. Oh, really?
Yeah, and I didn't know it for the longest time.
Yep. I know Caius. If you're into Caius at all, they had an album. They had a really awesome track at the end, but like along the way, there was like a little something, and these are a little silly something like that lasted a couple seconds. Anathema has an album, Find Day to Exit. Same thing. There's a song at the very end, but before you get to it, there's like some silliness along the way. You got to like endure. You got to wait. Like I left it at my friend's house. Mom was listening to it. She said like the CD ended, we left, and then it just ran on for 15 minutes, and then you just hear this guy imitating a chicken at full volume. She said she about jumped out of her chair. She's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're like, where the fuck is that sound coming from?
So where do we leave off?
I think we were talking about. So what's next? What's your next aspiration? Yes. What's your goals for the band coming into 2025 and beyond?
Realistically, it's more of a personal goal. I want to try to sit down and write more, get better, more comfortable with the writing process, and I feel like I've been at a physical plateau. I want to refine my guitar skills, try to get it, better than I have been the past however many years. Because like I said, I haven't felt like I've gotten like, better. I want to really kind of push that to a different level, and. Yeah.
Well, before you answer, Michael, what sacrifice would that take? Like basically what I'm saying is, what are you going to have to do to actually sit down and do that?
Not be lazy as shit.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's an honest answer, but I mean, I know we're all stretched thin, right? Like you have a girl, right? Do you have a girl or you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got that family, job, all that kind of shit,
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely squeeze the time in. It's just, a matter of finding the motivation to really
I'm the same.
sit down and do it.
I juggle. Am I lazy, or do I just really need this mental break? Like I know that there's time for me to like practice and get better, and I don't always utilize that. I'm like, well, I think I'm just gonna play some video games right here because I only got this small window. I'm like, well, this 90-minute window ain't that small, and you could do a lot of work in 90 minutes if you just like knuckle down and do it. So I'm with you there. I mean, I'm always on the show. You're not the first to hear it from me. I'm a huge proponent of like mental health and just like having your rest. You work hard enough every day, day in and day out. Like, do some things that are not work.
Yeah.
Just watch a show or play a game or something. But yeah, at some point you got to know the difference. Like in your own mind, you got to know like, okay, now I'm choosing to not do the work. So you have to own it at times. I own it. I'm very comfortable. I'm a Taurus, and I just like to laze about, eat good food, watch good shows or whatever. That's me. I gotta like. It takes a lot of work to get the bull up and moving. He's got to be very motivated. So
especially because we started kind of actually incorporating an exercise routine as well. So trying to hopefully that'll kind of help some of that discipline too.
Yep, I think
it does big time, dude.
Getting up and moving early is a huge thing, like for staying awake, because you can do a little bit in the morning, the bare minimum to get the day going, but then mid-afternoon you're like, oh, I got a nap, I'm tired, I don't wanna, and how am I gonna? But if you get up early and you're moving, shower, exercise, run, walk, whatever you do, like I gotta walk the dog for 5 minutes, I'm going. That's all it takes, just moving the limbs, and I think you're on your way to having a higher output of energy in your day.
Yep, I live and die by the work. I'm different. I gotta like tell myself when I can sit down because I have so many fucking things I'm trying to do. So it's like I have to like be like,
Jay, take a break.
Can I sit here for 2 hours?
Yes.
Fuck, man. And then I'm just sitting there thinking the whole time of the shit I have to do.
Yep.
So I've been trying to be a little more content lately, and I'm a little more present because a lot of times I'm not because of that, because I'm thinking about tomorrow and the 9 things I have to do for the podcast or music or work or whatever it may be, so
I think before we let Michael answer, I just want to say that's one of the interesting compliments of our friendship is we're alike in a lot of ways, but in that respect, even though we're only born like 2 weeks apart, but like Jay's a workhorse. He's just on the grind. He'll do his job. He'll come home. He'll go to the lab and he'll just work like basically dusk till dawn. Or whatever, or dawn to dusk.
It's always something, working out, cold plunge, fucking walking, making sure I get my steps, eating right. It's just a whole thing. And then on top of that, the work, then the podcast stuff, because I'm always doing something, whether I'm clipping, captioning, something. It's like just a constant. It may not seem like a lot, but when you're trying to edit a 2-hour podcast and do the art for it and do all that, it's just a lot of shit, man.
Yeah, it takes time no matter what.
Then besides the fact I'm trying to write some stuff for me or for Nick and I, really, just to explore new creative ideas, and then have iron sharpens iron. So it's just like
he stays
a
busy.
Constant fucking thing. But that makes me happy in life too, is knowing that I'm growing, like you had alluded to. As long as you're always growing and accomplishing something, it's not really about the outcome. Like I said, it's because I enjoy doing these things, and if I didn't get up off my ass, I wouldn't have none of these things that I enjoy to do, right?
You're experiencing life.
Yeah, exactly. Because I actually started Far Cry 6 again the other day because I love the Far Cry games. And I played, maybe about an hour, but that was 4 days ago now, and who the fuck knows when I'm going to go back to play it again. So it's like, that's like my video game time. I'm like, and then the whole time I'm just thinking like, maybe I should be doing something else, but I don't know.
I want to play Baldur's Gate 3 with my wife. She's not a gamer. But I'm like, well, just think of it like The Sims, because she'll play The Sims, right? I'm like, it's just a computer RPG, just point and click, just like The Sims. But we've only got to like the character creation stage. Again, another gamer. And then she said she got like to the first boss fight. There's an immediate boss fight, basically, straight away almost. And like, she's like, I couldn't get past it. And I was like, well, we just got to make the time to do that. But when we make together time, we don't like go for video games. Right? She's not a big time gamer. It's like we'll watch a show together or whatever. Right. But that's definitely something I want to do. I want to like find the time where we say, okay, every Saturday night we're doing it. Like just boom.
There you go.
But we'll figure it out.
Well, you can answer the question, and then I got a couple more questions for you. So like basically the question was 15 minutes ago, What?
What's coming up?
What's coming up next for you, bro? Like, what's your goal? You know, Tyler said he had some personal goals. You know,
Shows.
Yeah.
Fucking
I
shows.
guess like band goals would be yeah, definitely getting at least a couple shows for next year would be cool. And then getting this like new music recorded, being more intentional about like all the stuff around it and like taking our time on making sure everything's like ready and like all the content around that is like ready to go. That way we can get a very well thought out plan for everything. So yeah, just being more engaged as a group on getting everything like to the level it needs to be before we like start talking about like release plans and stuff. Because yeah, I mean, like I said, like we don't really know like when any of the stuff's coming out. Like we have this single as like a teaser taste kind of thing, but as far as like an actual release plan, we're still just talking about it. And yeah, and then like personal goals, like I want to do more. I want to do more music. Like I want more music in my life and like spend more time making that a career rather than a hobby.
okay.
So like production and stuff. Like I got a new band that I haven't worked with yet before coming in December, so that's cool. And like just trying to like focus on like producing more in 2025. But like a big thing with music is I want to like work more on my scoring and stuff.
Okay.
Like put out like build a portfolio of
Okay.
like scoring like to like existing like games or something like that, and like trying to get into that field because that's like always been my dream, is like doing like working with video games. And like as I discovered music as a passion, that like directly incorporated into that, where like, oh, how cool would it be to like write music for video games? And like
Yeah.
that's still like, if I were to have like a career, like obviously playing in a metal band, like it's cool, but like am I gonna make 6 figures playing in a metal band? Absolutely
tough.
not anytime soon, at least. And like
Yeah.
even those big dudes aren't really doing it. But a place that there is money is producing, like writing music for like big media and like
Mhm.
AAA titles and stuff. So
Yeah.
I feel like I have the skill set. I think it's
Oh, yeah.
just sharpening the saw and putting in the hours and like accumulating the portfolio to showcase to potential clients and stuff. And so like even something as simple as like a band comes to me for like, hey, we want like orchestra or like post-production elements like added into the song. Like
Oh, okay.
that's the kind of stuff like I'm shifting like my career niche into, is like I want that to be like my main thing. Like if like say like a video game or like a trailer or like any of these kinds of like medias that require like a score or composition to be made for it, I think there's money to be made there, and I think there's a good opportunity for me to showcase my skills. And it's a career where I would thrive, I think, and it would be something that I would be passionate about and wake up for every day. Is I've got a project I'm working on, I've got a deadline to hit.
Yeah.
Start writing music, and that's my goal, is like trying to take that more seriously and get those initial steps in of like hey, this is something I'm actively pursuing. And I've started that with like I rebranded my studio, and I've been working on like making my creative space more like welcoming, inviting, something I want to like go sit at every day, and like that kind of thing. So just like all those like little things you don't really think about to kind of get myself motivated to make that like career focus, so that I can quit my job someday.
Okay.
I'm really happy to hear you say that, because just the way you were talking about scoring your album with her or going forward, like the thing I was thinking is like, man, this guy's got to like score a movie or a video game. Like that's seems like a natural progression for you just based on what you were saying about your own music. I'm like, he's got to have thought about this. Like, please don't make me say it to him, right? Like,
Yeah.
So no, I'm really happy to hear you say that because I think that is something that if you apply yourself to, whatever that means, whatever time you got to take to do that, I think it'll happen for you. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. I mean, we live in the barrens of the Midwest. It's, like if maybe you would seemingly have more success if you were rubbing elbows with people in Hollywood or a bigger city, a bigger market.
Right.
But I still think the magic of the internet exists, and you can make that happen.
Yeah, and like I've been taking more like professional courses on that kind of thing, and like not really the music side of it, but like the professional side of it, where it's like how do you get into these markets? How do you create a portfolio? How do you like field this to like potential clients and stuff? So like that's the stuff I'm like learning, and like because like music. Not that I'm like, oh, I've got music, like I understand music. Obviously, we're always growing, but like I've got enough going there for me where if I can make the connections, I can put the two together. I feel like so. That's kind of my focus is like trying to like understand like the business of how I'm gonna get myself into that field.
Yeah,
So.
the music. I always said that, especially when I recorded a lot of rappers and stuff. It's like the music's the easy part. Like it's a lot easier to make once you've done it for so long. That's the easy part. The hard part is how do people listen to it? How do I get it in your case, like in the hands of somebody that could utilize it, or they could whatever value you're bringing, they can compensate for you, for whatever piece of art they're making, right? Like, have you thought about maybe sync licensing or anything like that too? Like,
I've looked into that, yeah. I think
it's a little different,
yeah,
because you make pieces and you just send them into these libraries, and then these music supervisors can like kind of skim through and pick your library. But there's a whole science to that to get your music at the top of the library and all that. But some of those sync checks can cut pretty big. You land one for the ABC or a syndicated show, like you're getting a check all the time for that piece of music. So it's just something to think about too.
With the sync licensing, I feel like I don't know if the passion would be there.
Right.
And I think passion's important. I think you have to care about what you're doing to like make it successful.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's also a very like high networking industry, and like that's like you got to live in Nashville kind of thing. Like you don't always have to, but like to get like that initial bump forward of like I'm getting into the industry, it's like you probably just got to like move to Nashville or like LA or something like that. And it's cutthroat too, and like I feel like contract work is more my speed because it like involves like me having a lot more creative say and like getting to like put myself into the music rather than being like there's kind of a quota to hit
specific, or you got to hit this certain genre, or you got to take this out, and it, like you might write a 2-minute piece of music that rocks, and they might use the first 10 seconds of it, and then there goes that piece of music. There's a lot of little tricks, and so I was just wondering though, because that's a different way to kind of like score and make money off music. So. Well, shit, man. We've been going for about 2 hours. I do appreciate you guys' time. Thank you guys so much for coming, back and being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Like, we really are fans of you guys, and
you guys are here every day in spirit.
I
rarely forget it.
Appreciate your music. Appreciate you guys as humans. I mean, just for coming here, sharing your music, being vulnerable with us, and coming on our show, and we really appreciate that. With that being said, is you want to.
Yeah, it's only been a year since I probably asked, if I even asked the first time.
Yeah, it's been almost a year since you guys been out.
Ish,
maybe?
close to.
I didn't really pay. I listened to the episode again, but I didn't really pay attention to the date. But plus, since we filmed so far out, just because they came out at a certain time doesn't mean it wasn't out for another 4 to 6
It was like
weeks.
winter. I was walking the dog in the snow.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was
or
like
fall.
early this year, wasn't it?
Could have been. I mean, we've only been doing it since August 2023. So
yeah, it would have
16
been.
months.
It was like a month or so before Worlds Away came out, which would have been like March. So like it was probably like February or March that we were here.
Okay, that sounds about right. I remember there being snow.
I mean, it's been almost a year, and then by the time this comes out, this will be next week. So
we might not have done this because the four of you were in the room last time, so we don't always ask this question. But what have you guys been listening to? Like, what's been in your ears that is not Vestigial, something heavy and something mellow for the crowd listening at home?
I've been listening to Soil Work again.
Okay.
Soil Work is awesome.
Yeah.
Rediscovered the love for them.
What albums in particular do you like to highlight?
You
You can describe artwork cover to me too.
Yeah,
Like,
I know the one recent like EP, a wisp of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
okay.
That one is very good, and honestly, a couple of them I don't know how to pronounce.
Yeah,
They're
the newer stuff that's kinda
overgiven,
like,
heightened.
Yeah, that one's
and
amazing, and the one that has
Verkleitenen.
yeah.
Verkleiten. I couldn't get into it, man. I
Really?
tried. I own it. I tried, and I was just like, I feel like it had too much of that Flight of the Night Orchestra vibe going on. It didn't have any teeth to it for me. I was just like, there's a lot going on. There's super incredible musicians, but I almost needed like Stabbing the Drama or Natural Born Chaos.
I
Like,
love that one. Yeah.
yeah. That stuff was like heavy. I think the last one that I really enjoyed by them was The Ride Majestic. So
Mhm.
that's going back to 2015. I really loved that one. Sworn to a Great Divide was a good one too. So soil work for the heavy. You got anything that you like to chill out to? Some people don't, and it's fair if you don't. I'm not gonna.
I really don't, honestly.
That's fair. Okay.
We asked Eric from Black Temple, and I thought he was going to stab us in the neck because we asked about something other than heavy metal. Love you, Eric. He was like, ha, ha, ha.
Evil laugh.
Yeah.
Pathetic.
No, I don't chill. There's no chill with that man.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's all good. Michael, what have you been digging on?
Heavy. I got 2 instant picks for you. Heavy. We've got the Summoning the Lich's new album.
Okay.
It's
Yep.
so good. Like I can't get enough of it. It's front to back. Under the Reviled Throne, I think it's called. Yeah, that is an incredible metal
Correct.
album. Just absolutely my kind of death metal, like melodic. There's, some of those like backing elements. There's the vocalist is just like perfect for the genre, and
Okay.
yeah, great
This-
heavy metal album. So
I'll have to squeeze it in here in the next 7 days because I think it's on my list and I haven't got to it yet.
yeah, you'll have a good time with that one for sure.
Sweet.
And then for lighter stuff, Bill Murray, man, I can't
love
stop.
Bill Murray, dude. So
It's like,
fucking
Can't
good.
stop.
Jay's been telling me to listen to this, and I'm like, I fully intend to. I feel like I have a list of metal albums to listen to first, but I think it's something that you're not the first person to say it. You're not even the second.
Yeah.
You're like, there's half a dozen people come on the show and said Bill Murray,
So
and I'm like,
fucking good, dude.
Yeah,
I need to remember to put it on.
yeah, the American Motorsports new
The new
album.
one?
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of his shit's awesome, but the
Yeah.
production and just songwriting.
I really
fuck,
love
man, it's so
the
great.
the brand. Like
Yeah.
it's just so like American, like lawn care dad,
Rednecky,
fucking
yeah,
like
yeah,
just
like-
like, and it's just like he
Mullety.
doesn't take himself seriously in any regard. But then the lyrics are just so heavy.
and
to
the
like,
music. The
Yeah.
music and the lyrics, like
Yeah.
nothing else is serious about it. But then when you listen to it, you're like, "This is some serious shit."
Yeah.
Like the music is so good, so professional. Yeah, it's
Right.
fucking
And
great.
I love like if you dive into like production techniques and stuff behind their music, dude. There's some super cool shit
Yeah.
that they're doing with like
so good, dude.
guitar tones and like everything else. It's just
Yeah.
great. So yeah, those
Yeah.
those are 2 albums that are very awkwardly on repeat with each other. You know, it's just like it's just such a weird combo, but like both very good.
All right, well, shit.
Thank you.
I know we
guys.
could probably talk to you for a lot longer, but that was 2 hours. We appreciate you guys coming through. Vestigial, check out the new song. Well, if you
Butter.
watch this podcast, hopefully you listened to it and didn't skip through it, you dumbasses. But make sure you go stream that and follow them and do everything with Vestigial. And yeah, with that being said, man, much love to you guys. Keep it metal. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.